So I've been working in hospice care for many years. I started as a community nurse, so visiting people in their homes. And then I was lucky enough to be part of a team, like you said, that opened up a hospice in Toronto. And then we moved to Ottawa. And when I moved to Ottawa with my husband grew up in Ottawa, I was not able to find work in palliative care, and I worked at a long-term care center for a little while, and then went to work for the VON, and then had this amazing opportunity to come join Hospice Care Ottawa. Now, Hospice Care Ottawa is a newer organization, and we're the amalgamation of two hospices that join together, and I'm going to get into a little bit more of that. As we go along, I feel personally that you learn better by asking questions. So as we go through, if you have questions, please interrupt. I'm happy to answer anything that I can. And if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I don't know the answer. But we'll just kind of move along. So what is hospice palliative care? When we talk about hospice palliative care, we talk about care that aims to improve the quality of living and dying and improving one's sense of well-being. So when I started working in palliative care and hospice palliative care, everybody used to say to me, that's such a tough job. You know, why did you go into that type of nursing? But what I learned is that when we start using a palliative approach with people, I actually get to do a journey along with people as they live through their illness. So when we take a palliative approach, we really want to take a palliative approach from the moment somebody's diagnosed with a life-limiting illness. And I'm going to show you a diagram about how we ebb and flow through that. But lots of times when people hear palliative, they just think of that end of life, the last days to weeks of life, and it's bigger than that, and it's broader than that. And that's something that I hope today, when I leave, that's something that a message I've left you with about it. And palliative care seeks to support life experiences that we move through, and we want to ensure that everything is meaning and adds value to people's life. So that's the approach that we take. What do we do? So we provide physical comfort, we provide psychosocial comfort, social and spiritual comfort, and we also provide practical support. We also do some caregiver respite and support. So when you have somebody who's living with a life-limiting illness and you're their caregiver, we also know that you need support as well. You need a break. You need to step away. You need to be whole for yourself to be able to care for your loved one. And so we offer that support as well. We do preparation and navigation for closure and for the dying process with families. And then afterwards, we do grief and bereavement support as well. So again, looking at hospice palliative care, it's the whole gamut. It's the whole focus that happens throughout the whole a disease process. When is it appropriate? Like I said, in an ideal world, hospice palliative care is appropriate at the time of diagnosis of a life-limiting illness. It happens so often that when I get a referral or we get a referral, it's somebody who's in their last weeks to days of life, and we could have done so much more and better support if we had known about the individual earlier on. And I'll tell you about our programs and why we can support people through and when we can support people through. What's nice is that it's any diagnosis. It doesn't matter what the life-limiting illness is. So it can be a cancer, it can be a chronic disease, it can be anything. As long as we know that the end trajectory is that somebody's going to end up dying, old age, we can use a palliative approach with that as well. So it's just about any life-limiting illness with any prognosis, regardless of age, culture, religion. So at the hospice, we don't have a faith-based practice at the hospice, and so that I think is really important as well. So anybody can come in and we can meet the needs spiritually of anybody that comes in. And anytime there are unmet expectations or needs and persons preparing to accept care. So one thing for sure is that you have to be able to accept the care that we're able to provide. So this is what they deem the palliative care model. And what this is, if you look at the first line of the shape there, that would be at the time of diagnosis. So at the time that somebody's diagnosed, we would take a palliative approach. In the top part, what you can see, the place that says therapy to modify disease. So as you progress in a life-limiting illness, at the beginning, there's lots of therapies we can do to help you live through the disease. And as the disease progresses, because it does, there's times where the therapies become less and less. And you can see at the bottom, we take more of a palliative approach or more of a supportive approach as the disease progresses. Palliative care, hospice palliative care, does not stop when we end up with somebody who's died, because we also go through and support the family and the care and the loved ones afterwards. So it's a whole trajectory that we do. And I think the really important part about hospice palliative care is our goal is to relieve any suffering that we can, and to improve people's quality of life. When people come into the hospice and I do an admission, I like to talk to people about what are their goals of care. What would they like? What's important for them? And you hear a lot of people say, I just want to be comfortable. And I can do that. And we can do that with medication and a whole bunch of other interventions, not just medication. But the important part is that it's that person's goal, and that's how we do. So we work as a team to ensure that we're meeting that individual's goal, and we do it with, like I said, like medication. But there's other therapies we use. We do a lot of, we do music therapy, we do art therapy, we do massage. There's lots of things that we can do. So why do we need it? Why is hospice palliative care important? Well, first of all, we know our population is aging. So that's a given. Quality of care. In Ottawa at the moment, I'm not sure how much you know this, in Ottawa at the moment, how the palliative care program works or how the funding works is that the Ottawa Hospice, the Ottawa Hospital and the Queensway Carleton Hospital actually don't have any palliative care beds, right? So they don't have any beds in the hospital that are deemed palliative. All that funding for the palliative beds flows through to Hospice Care Ottawa. So if somebody's in hospital and they are dying, they have a palliative team there, but they actually don't deem palliative beds. And so ideally what they'd like to do is get people out of hospital and either have people at home, if that's where they choose to die, or come into hospice. So currently at the moment in Ottawa, there are 19 hospice beds. That's it. There's 36 palliative care beds at Bruyere. So Bruyere has a palliative care unit, and there's only 36 beds there. So if you put those two numbers together, for what we have here in Ottawa, our population, we do not have a lot of palliative beds to support end-of-life care in the region. So it's important that we know that and we're able to take the best approach that we can with the individuals that we can serve. Do you have a question? No? Okay. Okay. So we know that there's inadequate residential support. We also know that 70% of the population would choose to die at home. That's where people would like to die. If I was just to take a quick poll here, if you guys could choose wherever you'd like to die, how many of you would like to die at home in the comfort of your own home? Probably quite a number of you, right? Absolutely. The challenge there is the services that are in the community don't always meet the needs of what we can offer in home. So the CCAC provides services for end-of-life care. So they will provide nursing services, personal support services, and so they do that. But it's not 24-hour care, and it's not 7 days a week, because we just don't have the capacity to do that. And so that's why the residential hospice is so important, to help meet the needs of what's happening in the community. So I talked about the 20 beds. We're currently hoping, or actually we have 19 beds. We're currently hoping to open another 10 beds coming up, but that's probably 5 years down the road. So it's still a long time before we're able to get those type of beds open and the care that's really needed in the community. So we know that there's a hospital bed shortage, and we also know that lots of times when people are in their home, if we can't provide the supports that they require, there's an increased use of emergency room visits. And that doesn't do the system any good, and it doesn't do the individual who's really sick any good by getting put into emerge and then discharged back home and put back into emerge. The ministry has improved end-of-life care funding. They absolutely have. I think if we were looking at 10 years ago, we had nowhere near the number of hospices that we have now, and nowhere near the end-of-life care ability that we have now. It's always a challenge, and I think the ministry is doing what they can as fast as they can. But as you can see somewhere else, we're just about to partake in a build to build another residential hospice. It's a $6 million endeavor. And the ministry's not giving us $6 million to do that. And a lot of that money is fundraising dollars. So that's part of the challenge too. To adequately serve our population, it would have to be over 50. Just hospice beds. You know, we could do with 100, right? But again, it's about how do we meet the needs? Because palliative care is not just end of life, like I said before. We need to also sort out the chronic conditions that we have. So in that slide I showed you that had the rectangle and the triangle, what I know anecdotally is that people go through episodes, right? So when you're diagnosed with an illness and you're getting treatment and you're getting radiation and you're getting chemotherapy, you're sick. You feel like crap. There's no other way to describe it. And we can do the best we can to control your symptoms. But wouldn't it be lovely if you could come into a place like the hospice where we had a chronic bed for you, where what I like to call we could do a spring tune-up with you, so you could stay there and get the nursing support and all the other psychosocial support that you'd need until you're healthier, and then you can go back home and you can live back home. And then if you start feeling really crappy again, you can come back into the hospice, we can do another tune-up, and we stay with you through your journey so that when you does come a time that you do need that end-of-life care, that intensive palliative end-of-life care, we already know you, and we've established an amazing relationship with you, and you can come into the hospice or die at home, but you have the supports we need. And that, to me, would be an ideal way to do palliative care. Part of what was done in Ottawa a little while ago is the Ottawa Hospital said to us, so we're closing down our palliative beds because you guys do a better job at doing it than we do. So we're flowing through our funding for our beds through to you. So the Ottawa Hospital absolutely supports us financially in that. And we work really closely with that palliative team there when we bring people in. Absolutely. And we do get a number of referrals from Queensway Carleton as well. If I have somebody who is in Renfrew, let's say, and their family lives in Ottawa, we can bring them into the Maycourt or the other or our Central West location because their family's here. So that way we can support them better with their families. So we're able to do that. So we're not limited to just the Ottawa area, but that's our typical catchment area. At Maycourt, I have 9 beds, and my staffing ratio is 1 RN, 1 RPN, and 1 PSW. So and we do 8-hour shifts. So that's an excellent staffing ratio for 9 people, right? So it typically works out that, a nurse has about 4 to 5 people that they're caring for So it's actually really good, and it's more intensive than you'd see in the hospital in their staffing ratio. And at Central West, my other location, it's the same thing. I have an RN, an RPN, and a PSW on all shifts. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm typically always full, right? So I have 10 beds at Central West, and I have 9 beds at Maycourt. So that's what I can handle. 19 patients. You give me more beds, I'll hire more staff, and we can do more, absolutely. Yeah. We need better end-of-life care across the province. That's just a given, and we know that, and the government knows that. BC has a different model, and they've been doing hospice a longer than we have in Ontario. Right, so they have a really good model, and their model looks different from what we're doing. Alberta, too, has a different model, and it's a really good model as well. So I think BC and Alberta are probably ahead of us when it comes to palliative care and hospice care. So it's completely funded by the government. So end-of-life care is funded by the government. But to be honest with you, they don't give us enough money to actually run the hospice the way it should. So I would say that they pay for 60%, and we have to fundraise 40% to meet the needs of the quality of care that we'd like to deliver in the hospice.
But the patient doesn't pay.
Patient doesn't pay anything. No. So everybody that comes into hospice is a client of the CCAC, so the Community Care Access Center. So all funding flows through the Community Care Access Center. So all medication and everything like that is covered that way. So just a little bit about Hospice Care Ottawa. So I told you that Hospice Care Ottawa was an amalgamation of 2 different hospices. So the hospice at Maycourt has been established for a number of years. And then the other hospice was Friends of Hospice Ottawa, and that was a hospice that was in Canada. Now, that hospice didn't have residential beds. We supported people in the community in their home by doing volunteer visiting. So that's why when we merged together, we were able to do another 10 beds under this merger. So we're a community-based organization, charitable, non-for-profit. And I've already talked about we really value high-quality end-of-life care for people living in Ottawa. So we partner with professionals, and we have over 600 volunteers helping us. We couldn't run without our volunteers. They're unbelievable and terrific. And so we have volunteers on all shifts as well, and they support care that we do in the hospice. So I've talked a little bit about that already. So through the Champlain LHIN, there is the Champlain Hospice Palliative Care Regional Program, and we work really closely with the LHIN on programming and what we do, and beg for funding and all that kind of stuff. And the LHIN really does support end-of-life palliative care. So our mission is to help people through their end-of-life journey by providing compassionate, high-quality care. And our vision is to be an integral part of the community. So these are our core values, but I think you can understand them and see what we are and see what we do in the quality of care that we provide. So what we offer. I talked a little bit about our residential programs. So that is people who come into the residence are in their last weeks to days of life. And then we provide that end-of-life care. Our average length of stay in hospice is about 10 days, right? So from admission to the time that people die, it's about 10 days. But we do a lot of other wonderful things too. So we run a couple day programs. So we run, there's 3-day programs that we run. One out of the Maycourt site, and that's 3 days a week. And we also have 2 other ones that are in, one's in Richmond and one is in Bell's Corners. So we also run day programs for there. And those are for people in the community living with life-limiting illness that can come and kind of get a day away. And there's a hot lunch provided, and there's art therapy, and people come and talk, and there's music therapy. So it's just a time to get away, and it's also a respite for caregivers. And so you can have any life-limiting diagnosis with that. You don't have to be end of life to come there. Anybody can come and just spend the day away. We have counselors that are there, social worker, that kind of thing. And so we run those programs. At Maycourt, it's done 3 days a week, and in the other two, it's done twice a week. So those are amazing programs, and they're really helpful for people in the community. We also provide transportation. So we have volunteer drivers. So if people need to get to appointments and they're not able to do so on their own, and they come on our program, we can transport people to doctor's appointments. We have an amazing volunteer service. So we have volunteers that go visit people in their homes. They can do light grocery shopping, light house cleaning, friendly visiting. They do all that, which is another really wonderful thing, especially if you've been at home and you can't get out and you have somebody there to come and see you and talk to you. And also it allows time for your caregiver, if you have a caregiver, to get out, to do some grocery shopping, do what they need to do, and then they feel safe and comfortable knowing that there's a volunteer there. All of our volunteers have 30 hours worth of training that they have to go through before they can be a volunteer and provide service to people in the hospice or in the community. So we talked about what was next. So we purchased 110 McCurdy Drive in Canada, which was a Presbyterian church. So we've just finished renovating that for our business component and our day hospice. And then we'll be breaking ground to build the 10-bed residential hospice soon. But we're only halfway to our goal of the $6 million to be able to build that. So we've moved our office staff in. Our community program will open up there in September, which is really wonderful, so that's great. And then we're looking at 2014 to 2016 for the residents to be opened. So how you can help. As I said, we have a $6 million capital campaign that we need to fund for. We also always love volunteers. We also, that's wonderful. We have administration, fundraising, building and maintenance, client care, transportation, all that wonderful stuff. May the 4th is the start of Palliative Care Week, Hospice Palliative Care Week, and we have the Hike for Hospice. So the Hike for Hospice is a national fundraising event, and so we're holding it at 2 different locations. One is at Maycourt, and one is on McCurdy. And so it's people hike and take donations for the walk, and that's one of our biggest fundraisers that we have is the Hike for Hospice. So you can go to our website, which is right there. And there's a link to the Hike for Hospice, and you can make a donation. The Hike for Hospice has been going on for a number of years, and it's quite well known. And it's one of the fundraising events that raises money nationally for hospice. And the nice thing about Hike for Hospice is that each hospice runs their own. So it's not that the money raised goes into a pool and gets divvied up. Any money that's given to Hospice Care Ottawa stays at Hospice Care Ottawa, which is really nice as opposed to it going into a national pool. Typically, we need to raise about $1.6 million a year on top of what the government gives us to continue to provide the services that we do for Hospice Care Ottawa. When I started nursing and I'm the palliative care nurse. I came knocking on your door. Hi, it's Lisa. Do you think people wanted to open their door to me? Do you think they thought, this is wonderful, Lisa's coming to visit? Exactly. I used to get the nickname Nurse Doom because I never had anything good to do, right? Because people don't want to talk about it. People are uncomfortable talking about it. Don't come to my house for dinner because it's a topic of conversation. I've married a very lovely man. He doesn't like talking about death. I'm like, oh my gosh, we never should have got together. Pardon me?
He's not a politician.
No, thank God. He works in film. But it's just that people don't want to have the conversation. It's a difficult conversation to have. People feel uncomfortable about it. So it's easy not to like the word palliative, but we've always associated palliative with death. And what we need to do is start associating palliative with quality of life, quality care, support. And that's what we need to do. When we talk about hospice care, it's like a home-like environment. So if we have people, so there's some people that will continue with palliative radiation, let's say, that are managing their symptoms right to the end of life. I can't do that at hospice. So that's somebody who would go to Briere. People who are still seeking a little bit of more active treatment, I can't do that at hospice. So that would be people who would also go to Briere. People who their symptoms are not managed, they're still in acute phases, they would tend to go to Briere. So Briere is more of an acute palliative care unit, and we're more of a home-like environment that'll do symptom management. At Maycourt, we have cots that can be pulled into the room. At Maycourt, I have 2 larger rooms that, if I wanted to, I could put 2 different patients in, but we'd never do that. So I have 2 larger rooms. So if we have somebody comes in with quite a large family, we'll do our best to put those people in the larger rooms. Maycourt, I have lots of little nooks and crannies. So I have pull-out couches in some areas and that type of stuff. But we are able to put beds in the room. At Central West, I'm a little tighter with space, but we do have the ability to get a cot into the room if people wish to stay overnight. That's never a problem, and I would never turn anybody away. Yeah. My only requirement is no loud parties. You'd be surprised. Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. So if somebody's in hospital, what happens is there's a palliative consult team at all hospitals. So the palliative consult team would do a consultation, and then there's a common referral form that gets filled out. And that referral form gets sent to a central triage, and that sits at Briere. So Briere looks at that, and they say, okay, is this person, so what is the person's preference? Do they prefer residential hospice? And is residential hospice appropriate? So then that referral form gets sent to me, and I get to look it over, and I get to say, yay, we can take this person, or no, we don't. I've only ever turned down one person in 7 months, right? And that was a very difficult decision. But so we take most people that come in. So that's the hospital component. In the community, it can be a family physician that refers. It can be, there's some wonderful palliative care doctors who work in the community, and they will refer as well. Or if a nurse is visiting through CCAC, sometimes they can do the referral as well. But everything gets pushed back to that central triage. And so that's how it's done. The first thing I would ask is how involved is the family doctor? And they'd say, he hasn't seen the doctor in, 6 months. So I would first suggest that they go see their family doctor. And if that's not possible, I'd ask if CCAC is involved. And if they said to me, no, CCAC is not involved, then I would make the referral to CCAC on their behalf. So get CCAC involved, because that way we can get the case coordinator out there, we can get a full assessment done, and then we can do that. And if they come to me, because I have people come to me with no doctors, right, I find one of our own. I'd like to thank you very much for the opportunity, and I appreciate your challenging questions. Thank you. If you have any other ones, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to do that, answer questions.
I'm the guy that's supposed to thank you, so thank you. But I have a paraphernalia. We had a special scarf pack away, but Bill lost them. So I've managed to scurry through we've got such wonderful gifts for you to take with you. This is a beautiful shirt.
Thank you.
That you're getting because none of us will wear it. But
thank you.
But here's something you've probably never had before. A bow tie.
Never.
And what better thing to get from a prostate cancer group than a bow tie? For a woman. Yeah. Well, last time I saw a bow tie on a woman, she was serving me drinks at some place. But anyway, there you go. There's a bow tie.
Thank you.
And our own very beautiful blue pen,
Excellent, thank you.
hardly used. And now try and control yourselves, you guys. This is the National Prostate Cancer Canada pin, which is a tie. Bill had one of those, but he didn't want to give it to you.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And this is our own pin, which is a reef knot.
Excellent.
Which sort of tells us how we should stay together. But anyway, thank you very much
Thank
for
you very
coming.
much.
I learned an awful lot. Richard is going to fill out about 4 pages of the next newsletter with this.
I'll have to, because I need content.
Yeah. And just to reiterate that Richard needs content. So if you want to put your story in there, I'll put mine in. You've never ran
We don't
mine.
need cartoons, John, we just want.
Good story, okay. Straight story, there's a half a page already. Anyway, thank you very much.